Does the fun with Karen Reed trial ever stop? Oh, my peaches, my humans. Hi, I'm FCA. Welcome if you're new. Welcome back if you are not. And either way, you should maybe subscribe, hit that little bell for if you want the layman's summaries of the Karen Reed trial, because I love listening to lawyers do their thing on the YouTube and stuff too. But I also am kind of like, can you say that in our English and not legalese? So that is what I am here for. As usual, I am not trained or in the profession of legalese. I am just a law enthusiast and really interested in the Karen Reed case. There have been a lot of updates. There were so many motions and trials in the last week. Let's talk about it. It's been crazy. And the stuff that came up in the trial on Wednesday was so we're going to talk about what happened last Tuesday, then we'll catch up on what happened on the Wednesday. Oh my goodness. So we actually ended up going back to something that I thought we were past, and that was Judge Canone wanted to expand more on the ARCA experts getting paid. ARCA are the biomedical engineers who were doing testing for the federal investigation about how Karen Reed could have backed into John O'Keefe, as the Commonwealth, which is the prosecution in Massachusetts, has declared happened. And they were not allowed to make opinions about medical things. And in the first trial in the summer of 23, the defense had said very clearly, we did not, these are outsiders, these are third parties, we did not hire them, they're not paid by us, they are from the federal investigation. And what the ARCA experts had to say, which the Commonwealth tried really hard to keep them out entirely this time, aligns more with the defense. And the judge was like, okay, but we found out that you paid them, actually, you paid them $24,000. So, and the defense said, we got a surprise bill for $24,000. And only the person who paid it knew that it happened. Now, the problem with that I think Judge Canone really had an issue with, was that during trial, they did not lie to the jury. The defense didn't tell a falsehood to the jury to try to make it seem like, ooh, these outsiders think the same thing we do. They were not paid or charged during the trial itself. They received a bill for compensation after the trial had ended, and the bill was just paid. The disclosure of the bill is the real issue the judge has and seemed to really be harking on. And they said their piece again, and the judge seemed like, okay, I guess that doesn't affect the trial. It didn't affect it during trial because they didn't plan on paying another $24,000. And I just want to stop and take a minute to think about that. For two people to come on the stand and say what they tested for, like, they were already paid by the feds to do the testing that they did, and for that time and labor, but to come to court and say what they did and their hotels and food, etc., $24,000 for two people to talk on the stand. Court is expensive. It's no wonder normal, average people like Karen Reed is a successful accountant. I don't know what her net worth is or anything, but it must be pretty good or she's in a lot of debt, because the payments in court to try to defend yourself are absolutely ludicrous. Okay, back to this. The judge was satisfied with that, and then they continued to go hand in hand with that with Dr. Crosby. Dr. Crosby is an expert in dog behavior, and he was supposed to testify against Dr. Russell. Dr. Russell had to have a whole daubered evidentiary hearing, and that means that she had her own little mini trial where she was questioned by the judge and the other side to make sure that she was an expert on what she was supposed to be an expert in, and that she knows what she's talking about to be able to make the opinions that the defense wants her to make. then the rebuttal to her is Dr. Crosby, who's going to say, no, I don't think that John O'Keefe's inner right arm injuries are dog injuries for these reasons involved. The prosecution claims that with Dr. Crosby, they made a mold of Chloe's teeth that they found where she was rehomed in Vermont and got a mold of her teeth and everything. And this is where we get a little dicey and spicy, okay? Because the judge asks, she goes, so you confirmed and did everything to make sure that the dog you got the mold of was actually Chloe. Like, you made sure that this is the right German Shepherd, correct? The prosecution was very sure. And you turned all of that over to the defense, right? Well, Brennan, the special prosecutor, the lead prosecutor right now, said, yes, we did all that. Every single person that Karen Reed trial, like at the defense table. And so Judge Canone didn't miss that. She was like, so you turned all of this over in this packet that I have. You turned that over to the defense. Well, not in this packet. We did mention that we were going to get that to them, but we can get it to them before the case officially starts. Okay, so his answer changed, which is fun enough. And Judge Canone is so frustrating. She didn't rule from the bench, which is so frustrating. 99% of the time, she just doesn't make even simple rulings from the bench, which would save everyone so much time and energy. But she did, spoiler alert, she did allow Dr. Crosby to come in. And I'm going to tell you this, my opinion is I find that to be biased. Not only because in order to begrudgingly, and I use that word very emphatically, begrudgingly allow Dr. Russell to be able to make opinions about the injuries to John O'Keefe's arm, she was like, I guess technically she makes the cut. Because she's a medical doctor and you have to be a medical doctor and she does do dog bite injuries and her method has a standard. Okay, we'll let her testify. And she had a 3-page document for Dr. Russell. She had 1 paragraph allowing Dr. Crosby. Yeah, he obviously, his methods and stuff, he has references to Dr. Russell. So Dr. Crosby, we're good. And the defense was going, Your Honor, Dr. Crosby is not a medical doctor. You said the Massachusetts law requires that only medical doctors can make opinions about bodily injuries and medical injuries. Dr. Crosby is not a medical doctor. How is he allowed to make testimony about the injuries based on your ruling and what you said the Massachusetts law was? And she goes, they're allowed to have a rebuttal witnesses. Rebuttal witnesses have a little bit more leeway and do have a different entry thing than just straight witnesses do. So rebuttal witnesses and counter witnesses, she being Judge Canone, basically just said that Dr. Crosby's being allowed in to make it fair that the defense has an expert and then the prosecution has an expert. That way the jury gets to determine which one they like better. So I still think that was crazy, where the whole thing was is she a medical doctor? Was her methodology? And then they didn't even have an evidentiary hearing or a Daubert hearing for Dr. Crosby. It's just, yeah, he's rebuttal, let him go. It's fine. Okay, Judge C. Then we also have that there was the problem with the cameras. Wednesday popped off, my humans. Last Wednesday popped off in the courtroom. The things that were revealed in court, not only is there frustration that the defense was saying, we're still getting video evidence. Okay, so what had happened was there was a discovery made that a former detective, Detective Petro, he had an entire thing of, yes, I took all the entire time that Karen reads, the whole 48 hours, that he was in there, he took. Yeah, he made that happen. He has all of it, and he put it onto a drive in 6-hour increments. Now, this is where the defense is going crazy, because they're like, excuse me, over 48 hours, there were 6-hour time frames, which when the maths, that means there should be 8 videos. 8 videos of 6 hours. The defense is like, whoa. So the prosecution, the Commonwealth has said that they have 6-hour increment videos. We have been given a handful of videos that are only in short little several minute, half-hour-ish segments. We have not gone anywhere close to even a 1 complete day. We don't even have 24 hours of video from the Sally Port, which was very contentious from the beginning, if you remember, because of the inverted video and everything else, and that's going to come up here in a second. But they're like, so if they have 6-hour increment videos, why do we not even have a full day of the Sally Port recordings? And some of those recordings were indeed belonging and having things of Brian Higgins, one of the key witnesses in this case, who is coming up. If you are unfamiliar with who Brian Higgins is, he was alleged to be Karen Reed's sort of on-off lover too. When her and John O'Keefe were off, she was flirting and had kissed him before, etc. And he was at the Albert's house the night of the incident. So there's that. And he had said that he was not on the phone at a time when his phone said he was on the phone. His phone records were like, yeah, he had made a call that lasted this long at this time. And he said, no, that wasn't a call. That was a butt dial. Everybody in the witnesses for the Commonwealth, they all butt dialed. However, there is more than one video of Brian Higgins being at the Sally Port, including him being on the phone. And they just got that last month, according to the defense. That, this is impeachment evidence. He said he wasn't on the phone at this time, that he never made a call. It was a butt dial. And then we have video with the timestamp that says he was indeed on the phone at the Sally Port. What now? And, it just, the way my face looked, because I was listening to this when I was at work. I was listening to the court thing while I was at work. And I kept making faces going. And people at work were like, are you okay? Because not only was there still missing video, but that video still exists in its entirety, or in at least 6-hour increments entirety, but also it was accessed repeatedly by the one Trooper Proctor. There have been little reports and post-it notes of Dr. Officer Buchanan, who is also one of the officers who testified in part of the case, where he was in charge of the stuff from Detective Petro, who gave this stuff to Trooper Proctor, and Trooper Proctor repeatedly accessed this information. Yeah, the sketchy lead investigator who has been forced out of his role and terminated for conduct-related things and stuff found out in the federal investigation due to misconduct and misbehavior in other cases as well. He had access, and there's also reports that had been found by the defense and through the prosecution recently that Trooper Proctor disposed of the cameras themselves, and the chief of police, I'm going to say that again, the chief of police had a little post-it note in reference to asking about the inverted video, and her exact words were, "That's how the camera records, lol. No tampering." Lol? a man is no longer on this earth, and his niece and nephew who he adopted, their closest family member, are now bereft of him, and his family is grieving, and there's a woman on trial who's claiming that she is getting thrown under the bus and framed. Your whole department's dignity is at stake, and the trustworthiness of them is on the line, and you're making your reports via post-it note with lol? How are we supposed to trust them and take them seriously when the chief of police is, lol, that's just how the camera records, it's not tampered with? So you have a faulty camera, and that camera and the DVR material still existed. The prosecution had claimed, and all of the people in the police department had said, yeah, we can't give you the whole video because it overwrites after 30 days. But special prosecutor, who was not brought in until after the first trial, Hank Brennan, he was able to find DVR video from early January 22. This incident happened on January 28th/29th, 2022. And he found video before that in early January of 2022 to prove that there was no tampering. He was going to bring in, he being the prosecutor, was going to bring in evidence of the camera before, showing there wasn't any tampering. There's no funny business like the defense tried to pull in the first trial. This is just how the camera lens records in this part of the Sally Port. Oh, you were able to access stuff from prior to 2022? How come we were told it overwrites after 30 days and you're still able to find it in 2025? And when the defense went to go get that evidence, oh, Trooper Proctor, he disposed of that. He already accessed that. They changed their cameras out before the defense experts could look at them. I'm not saying something sketchy is going on. I'm just saying that sounds sus to me, to the unprofessional in legal stuff FCA. And Lally and the prosecutor were going over new video evidence in August of 2024, and that video evidence wasn't turned over to the defense until October. Months. Several months. Why did it take you from August, whatever time in August, until October? I know that they have to go over stuff. They have other things they got to do. So maybe they had it for a week or two for their own searching and going over purposes. How come it wasn't turned over to the defense for months, when it was all supposed to be turned over before the first trial, and it all existed before the first trial? It gets worse. It gets worse, my humans. Oh my peaches. So it gets worse in the sense of that not only was this video being trickled over a little bit by little bit, but there's also reports from Detective Petro, Chief of Police, Trooper Proctor, and Officer Buchanan. I apologize if I mispronounce his name. That they were discussing what to hand over, and were going through and filtering stuff that refuted the defense. That is in the paperwork. That is in the reports. That is a quote. That's not me paraphrasing. That is a quote. That they were going sifting through the video that refuted the defense's claims. So they weren't even planning, according to the defense's arguments here. This is now paraphrasing and not in the report. The defense is now claiming that this proves that there was strategizing over the video, and that instead of just turning over all evidence, they were sifting and filtering evidence to turn over that refuted the defense's claims and not including exculpatory information. They weren't planning on turning it all over, and by doing that, that means that there is exculpatory evidence, things that prove different to the Karen Reed, that make her look better, that they weren't going to turn over. Now, thankfully, the prosecutor, Special Prosecutor Brennan, was like, listen, when I found that out, I was trying to get all of it, but they weren't handing it all over to me either. I didn't know about a lot of this stuff because I thought we had everything, and then when I went to go double check, there was more. I didn't know. This is all Trooper Proctor's fault. Brennan threw Trooper Proctor. Trooper Proctor's already been terminated from his position. He has been disgraced from the police force, etc. And so Brennan and the rest of the Commonwealth are going, you know what? He's already looking bad. He has all these terrible text messages. Let's just keep throwing him under the bus and making him the fall guy. That way it looks bad, but not as much on us. Is pretty much what happened. Crazy. And his only real rebuttal that Brennan had to the defense going, how come we don't have these 8 6-hour videos? How come the evidence of Trooper Proctor going in and replacing and disposing of cameras, which, listen, again, I'm not a legal expert, but to me, if I was on the jury as an outsider, that sounds like destroying evidence to me. Going in and, hey, this camera is defective. Okay, well, we want our experts to look at it, get the metadata and stuff. You can't. It's gone. He was like, well, the defense never asked for it. They never asked for this, that, the other thing. They could have asked for it and they didn't. He said that the defense didn't ask for it maybe 6 times in 2 paragraphs, just saying like this part of this, well, they didn't ask for it. This part of this, they didn't ask for it. They don't have to. They shouldn't have to ask for it. You're just supposed to turn over all evidence. And so this is where they were talking about Rule 14 of Massachusetts and Brady violations of if evidence isn't turned over, it needs to be dismissed. Judge Canone, I don't think, has any interest in dismissing this case. Brennan has also further asked for yet another continuance, saying that they still need more information because this is supposed to start next month. We're already in mid-April, or mid-March, pardon me, and this is supposed to start with jury selection on April 1st. He's like, we have so many things going on. There's still new evidence. We have new experts, and not to mention, the prosecution is going in a very different direction than they went the first trial. Like, this is not trial on repeat. This is, you know what, first trial didn't happen, whole new trial. Because they're going with trying to prove at the time that Karen Read was showing signs of guilt, and trying to go through, okay, well, she did this, she said this, she called these people, she was doing these things, she had this interview, she was doing all this. These are all showing of someone, experiencing guilt. So she has guilt and remorse. She's doing remorseful actions, which proves that she leans to proving that she did the thing we're telling her that she did. I do not think that Judge Canone didn't want to give a continuance the first time, and to try to prevent that from being a thing on appeals, she allowed a continuance because this trial was actually supposed to take place in January. It was supposed to start in January, and she granted a continuance until April. And the prosecution is going, we're still not prepped, and the defense is going, we still don't have several hours of video evidence. So the battle of evidence continues. It's just crazy. A whole nother new thing that happened that was touched on was that before we talked about how Karen Read, that they needed an affidavit for her to get another attorney on the case. Attorney Bedro. He's not allowed on the case. That is the latest update that happened after Wednesday. Not only was Dr. Crosby allowed to be brought in, but Bedro is not going to be Karen Read's additional attorney. Judge Canone made it very clear that she was mad about it. There's another pseudo-connected case that is happening where Attorney Bedro is already someone's legal representative, and that is Turtle Boy. If you do not know who Turtle Boy is, they are a journalist who supposedly was doing stuff to the McCabe's, harassing the McCabe's, and has been on the online warpath against the Alberts and the McCabe's, and has been accused of being a leading force in the harassment against the Alberts and the McCabe's. And so Turtle Boy has their own thing happening with the case, and they're also saying that and so the judge was like, there's too much conflict of interest between the connections to the Karen Read case and Turtle Boy's own case. That is his Twitter handle, and so we can't have that. This attorney cannot do their job properly and effectively without conflict of interest bequeathing. And even though waivers were signed, Karen Read was okay with this, things were explained to Turtle Boy, etc., the judge isn't having it. She goes, you already have 4 attorneys. You really do not need another one. Although Judge Canone does clash heads a lot with Alan Jackson, which is amusing to watch, but I'm sure doesn't help their case any. And just for wholeness sake, Turtle Boy has denied all of those things, saying that no, he's not harassing or intimidating witnesses with what he reports. It's just, he's a journalist, he reports stuff, and the McCabe's and Alberts don't like what he reports and how he reports, and they do not like that he seems to have been favoring Karen Read in the trial. And a lot of people who like Turtle Boy have been supporting Karen Read, and he's like, you not liking what I report doesn't make me harassing you. What other people do because they read my thing and it gets them enraged and up in arms, I'm not responsible for their actions. I report things as they happen. If people like or don't like that, that's not my problem or my issue. And so that case is ongoing, and that is what attorney Pedro is doing. So, in case you want to caught up on that, since it is tangentially related to the Karen Read trial, we continue to have additional exhibit motions being presented by the defense to try to aid in their dismissal case. They really want this case dismissed because they have already said a jury did rule on the major issues. They just didn't write it down. That's long gone for them. So now they're saying there's too many violations of evidence not being turned over intentionally by the defense, by the police department. The corruption is just too overwhelming that there's no way for Karen Read to get a fair trial when we're up against the corruption that we're up against. Everything, they are intentionally doing stuff, hiding stuff, keeping stuff, preventing us from getting evidence for it to go on. Those exhibits were additional exhibits that were turned over and presented got tongue-tied, were presented on March 7th. So that happened on Friday. And now there's going to be a whole bunch of new motions and trials and mini trials coming up, I'm sure. I will let you know when that happens. And I'm trying to keep you up to date with this, but these people are filing motions the way some people eat a bag of chips. So that is that. I think that's insane. Let me know what you think. Are there Brady violations, or is Prosecutor Brennan just going, where is this coming from too? And he's trying to deliver stuff as he can, and there's just so much going on. He was brought in afterwards and was just dumped a pile of stuff on his lap, and he's still trying to sort through it himself. And he's like, wait, when did we do this? I don't think that Brennan is trying to be sneaky. He also seems to have, he had a very different demeanor, is what I'm saying. All right, I will see you all in the next one.